Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in Sophomore English. We are in the MyPerspectives volume number 2. We are in unit 4, All That Glitters. We are on page 435 and we're looking now at Reginald Gibbons' Money, a poem that is what we will call a prose poem. Look at it on the page itself and just notice how it looks different from Tracy K. Smith's poem, The Good Life, on the effacing page 434. This is a poem, but it's what we call a prose poem. So write that down right away at 2B. Now we're going to begin, first of all, on page 431 with some background information on Gibbons, and then we will come to the poem itself with the title simply, Money.
Money by Reginald Gibbons. Poetry. Background.
431.
This poem features an element of American culture that is now almost entirely gone. Door-to-door sales.
Market.
Before the widespread use of media and telephones, salespeople would make unexpected stops at private homes in the hopes of selling their products or services. Many towns and cities have passed ordinances to regulate and restrict uninvited door-to-door solicitations. About the poet. Reginald Gibbons, born 1947, spent his early life in Houston, Texas, far from the literary world of which he would soon become a part. Gibbons studied Spanish and Portuguese at Princeton University, but he quickly took to poetry after earning a doctorate from Stanford in comparative literature.
Market.
Gibbons has focused on social injustice throughout his career, attempting to use the platform of poetry to activate social awareness and change.
Market.
Money by Reginald Gibbons.
435.
The children are eating lunch at home on a summer weekday when a man comes to the door and asks their mother if she has anything that needs fixing or carrying or any yard work he can do. They chew their food a little dreamily as, with her back straight and her voice carefully polite, she says, "No thank you, I'm sorry," and the man goes away. "Who was that, Mama?" they say. "Oh, no one," she says. They're sitting down to dinner, but they have to wait because the doorbell rings, and a thin young boy begins to tell their father about a sales program he's completing for a scholarship to be supervisor. And he holds up a filthy, tattered little booklet and lifts also his desperate guile and heavily guarded hope. And the children's father says, "No thank you, sorry, but I can't help you out this time," and the boy goes away. The children start to eat and don't ask anything, because the boy was just a boy. But their father acts irritated and hasty when he sits back down.
Page 436.
Once a glassy-eyed heavy girl, who almost seems asleep as she stands outside their door, offers for sale some little hand towels stitched by the blind people at the Lighthouse for the Blind. And the children are in the folds of their mother's full skirt, listening to the girl's small voice. And their mother says, "Well, I bought some the last time." She buys the children school supplies and food. She pays the two boys for mowing the yard together and weeding her flower bed. She gets a new sewing machine for her birthday from the children's father. And she buys fabric and thread and patterns and makes dresses for the girls to save money. She tells the children each to put a dime or quarter into the collection plate at church. And once a month she puts in a little sealed white envelope, and the ushers move slowly along the ends of the pews, weaving the baskets through the congregation, and the organist plays a long piece of music. Whisk brooms, magazine subscriptions, anything you need hauled away, Little League raffle tickets, cookies, chocolate candy, can I do any yard work again and again, hairbrushes, Christmas cards, do you need help with your ironing one time, and more, came calling at the front door while the children were sometimes eating, sometimes playing. Their faces would soften with a kind of comfort in the authority of mother or father, with a kind of wonder at the needy callers. Their father left for work every day early and came home for dinner, and almost always went again on Saturday, in his car. Their mother opened a savings account for each child, and into each put the first $5. The children felt proud to see their names in the passbooks and wanted to know when they could take the money out. But they were told they had to save their money, not spend it. They felt a kind of pleasure in these mysteries, to know that there were things you would understand later when you grew up and had your own house, and while your children were eating their dinner and making too much noise the way you did. You knew it was true. The doorbell would ring, the familiar surprise of it. Who would it be? And someone would be holding a little worn book or a bundle of dish towels, or once an old man, but perhaps he only looked old, with his beard, came with bunches of carnations, white, red, and pink, and he too was turned away.
Note the genius of this poem. We'll begin this prose poem. Notice we'll begin in paragraph 1 with the question, "Who was that, Mama?" They say, "Oh, no one," she says. But then notice at the end of the poem, in paragraph 6, that we're told the doorbell's going to ring, the familiar surprise of it, who would it be, and someone would be holding a little worn book or a bundle of dish towels. Notice we go from no one to someone. Now, reduce this poem, prose poem, to a single line. What is this poem actually about? The title is Money, which is of course mentioned twice in the poem, in stanza 4 and in stanza 6. Money gets used as a word, but what actually at 2a is really being suggested in this text about money, and the way Gibbons suggests that children come to learn about the value of money and the individuals who don't have it or need it desperately, and therefore will go through the process of door-to-door sales, which again for a time in America was the way a lot of people who didn't have very much for financial resources had to try and make a living by just literally walking up to a front door, knocking on the door, and then hoping that somebody would give them the time of day and then maybe even a little bit of money for something they were marketing or selling. This poem suggests what about legacy and the ways we learn to think about money. Now, of course, at 2b, you've already written down, this is a prose poem. It reads brilliantly, though. Notice the list of paragraph stanza 5. Whisk brooms, magazine subscriptions, anything you need hauled away, Little League raffle tickets, cookies, chocolate candy. Can I do any yard work again and again? Hairbrushes, Christmas cards. Do you need help with your ironing one time? And more came calling at the front door while the children were sometimes eating, sometimes playing. Notice the balance of the language here. Their faces would soften with a kind of comfort in the authority of mother or father, with a kind of wonder at the needy callers, the inability for the children to in any way identify with the individuals who are called at the beginning of the poem nobodies, and of course by the end of the poem somebodies. At 3a, to relate this text, what do you want to say about The Good Life of Tracy Smith, or the other poem that we've studied, Avarice, as well, Kominagaka's poem? What do you want to say? How do these three poems all go together as it relates to the topic of Unit 4, All That Glitters? And then finally, to own a poem like this for yourself, what is your relationship to individuals who do not have much for financial resources? To what degree do they need help? To what degree are they nobodies or are they somebodies? Thank you.